so for the third day of this stuff, this is now going to be called the Irrational Conjugates Theorem. What it is doing is, I'm going to give you the answers. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you the answers. I'm going to tell you that the answers are 2, 3, 4, let's say. But what I want to know is what was the equation before that. So what you're going to have to do is a whole lot of FOIL. That's what this last part entails. You have to do a whole lot of FOIL. Okay? Now, some of the times they're not going to give you some of the answers. And what I mean by that is, let's say that I give you a 0 of 3 and then a 0 of 2 plus root 5. There is one 0 that's missing. Can anybody think about what that 1 would be that's missing? Or try to?
The 0.
I'll give you a hint. It's supposed to have 3 zeros, but I only gave you 2. One of them's missing. Does anybody have any idea as far as what it could possibly be?
0.
No, not 0. Good guess. Huh?
1.
Not 1.
2.
2 minus the square root of 3. Right. Remember when you square root, it comes in pairs. Right? So that should always have plus or minus. And if it doesn't, it should be, that's the one that's missing. Okay? So if they give you square root in your, or in the numbers that they want you to remultiply back out, then it should have a plus or minus on the square root piece. So this one should have had 3, but sometimes they only give you 2. Okay? And now what we're going to do is we're going to take those numbers and we're going to remultiply them back out to get what the equation looked like to begin with. So here's an easier one to start you off with, because you know how I like to give you the easy ones first. Okay, so first thing I'm going to look at is there a hidden one that's not up there? No. Why did I say no? Because there's no square root. Okay? If there is a square root, then you might have a hidden one. But for this particular thing, no, there's not. So here's what you have to do. This initially would have been x equals negative 2, x equals 3, x equals 6. Last couple days after we factored them, we set them each equal to 0 and solve for x, right? That's what they are, is x equals negative 2, x equals 3, x equals 6. Before it got to that phase, it would have been like this. It would have been x plus 2 equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. X minus 6 equals 0. It would have been where, remember, each group equals 0. Before it got to that step, it would have looked like this. X plus 2 times x minus 3 times x minus 6. Now guess what you have to do?
FOIL.
You got to FOIL. Now it's time to FOIL. When you have 3 of them, remember you do 2 at a time. So which 2 do you want to multiply first? First 2? What's x times x? X squared. What's x times negative 3? What's 2 times x? What's 2 times negative 3? If I combine like terms, I have x squared minus x minus 6. And now I got to multiply it by x minus 6. And I do it one more time. What's x squared times x? X cubed. X squared times negative 6. Negative 6x squared. Good. What's negative x times x? Negative x squared. Awesome. Negative x times negative 6. Plus 6x. Negative 6 times x. Negative 6x. And negative 6 times negative 6. Positive 36. So when I combine like terms, I would have x to the third minus 7x squared. What happens to the x's? Yep, they're gone. Plus 36. And that's the equation that we started with. Okay? So, they are going to give you 3 numbers or 2 numbers or something like that. And then you are responsible for trying to come up with what was the equation. This is it. This is the last thing that we had to do. Okay? Do you want to do another one? Sure? Okay. How about one with the square root in it?
Yeah.
4, 6 minus the square root of 7. That's the only one it gives you. So are they missing something?
Yeah.
Which one are they missing?
Plus the square root.
6 plus the square root of 7. So now, before it was at that stage where we set them each equal to 0, that would have been x minus 4 equals 0. That would have been x minus 6 plus root 7 equals 0. And that would have been x minus 6 minus root 7 equals 0. All I did, just so that you guys know, is I set each of those equal to x, and then I subtracted or added everything over. I made them equal to 0. So I said x equals 4, and then subtracted it over. X equals 6 minus root 7, added or subtracted it over. X equals 6 plus root 7, added or subtracted everything over. Does that make sense so far? Now what do I have to do? I got a FOIL. Now, which two do you want to multiply first?
X minus 6 minus.
The square roots. I would suggest also multiplying the square roots together too. You'll see what happens when we do it. But I would always suggest multiplying those two first, because there's a reason for that when you see it. So if I take x minus 6 plus root 7 times x minus 6 minus root 7, what's x times x? X squared. What's x times negative 6? Negative 6x. What's x times negative root 7? Negative root 7x. Whether you put the x in the front or behind it, that doesn't matter. It's a moot point. Cacau's opinion. What's negative 6 times x? Negative 6x. What's negative 6 times negative 6? Positive 36. And what is negative 6 times negative root 7? Positive 6 root 7. Now notice, remember how I multiply this, I always put stuff underneath each other, I put them up vertically? Notice I didn't put the 6 root 7 underneath this one. Do you know why?
Because it's a square root of 6, isn't it?
That has close. This has an x. That doesn't. They both have square root of 7, but one has an x and one doesn't. That's why I didn't put them together. Okay? What's root 7 times x?
Root 7x.
Plus root 7x. That's the one I'm going to put underneath that one. What is root 7 times negative 6? Negative 6 root 7. And then now here's the one that most people mess up. Root 7 times negative root 7 is what? Not 0.
7.
Close. Not 49.
Negative 49.
No.
Negative root 49.
No. What? It's not 7.
Did you say what?
Negative 7. Good. It's root 7 times negative root 7. You guys were forgetting the negative sign.
That's it.
Now, when you take the square root of 7 times the square root of 7, that is the square root of 49. But what's the square root of 49? 7. But then you had a minus out in the front. So you had a minus 7. So now, if I combine like terms, I get x squared minus 12x. What happens with the root 7x's? They're gone. What's 36 minus 7? What's 6 root 7 minus 6 root 7? They're gone. Do you know why I wanted to multiply those two first?
Get rid of the.
You get rid of the square roots that way. That's why.
That's the answer.
And later on in the chapter, we're going to deal with i's again, and it's the same concept. You multiply those two together. Those are called conjugates. Conjugates are when you have, if you have plus root 7, then you have minus root 7. If you have plus root 13, minus root 13. Where the middle sign is different, when you multiply conjugates of each other, things are going to go away. So therefore, now, don't forget, we still have one more piece. What's the other piece we got to multiply it by? X minus 4. So I have, right now I have x squared minus 12x plus 29 times by x minus 4. What's x squared times x? X cubed, good. What's x squared times negative 4? What's negative 12x times x? What's negative 12x times negative 4? Positive 48x, because two negatives, remember, make a positive. What's 29 times x? What's 29 times negative 4? Good. Now I'll combine like terms together. I get x to the third minus 16x squared. What's 48 plus 29? 77. And that is the original equation that gave us those answers. Okay? Yeah. I took those right out of potentially ones I'm going to give you. Do you want me to do another one? Because they're not any different than that.
No.
That's as hard as they get. Okay, so to add on to your assignment that I gave you yesterday, it's on page 195, 41, 43, 45. Just add those on to yesterday's.
Can I look and see if